Phoenix, Arizona. From 30,000 feet, it looks like a city that has finally mastered the desert. It is a sprawling grid of shimmering new roads, booming housing developments, and high-tech business hubs that keep pushing the horizon further into the sand. It is a city of momentum, a place where thousands arrive every month seeking a fresh start and a piece of the American dream. But as you descend from the clouds and hit the pavement, the mirage begins to fade. Imagine for a moment that the very air around you is a physical weight. Imagine standing in a climate so unforgiving that the simple act of being outdoors is a form of punishment. Now, imagine you have no door to lock, no thermostat to turn, and no sanctuary to hide from a sun that does not discriminate. Welcome to Homeless US. Today, we are taking you into the heart of the Valley of the Sun, not to see the resorts or the skylines, but to witness a human emergency that Phoenix can no longer hide. While the city grows at a record pace, thousands of people are living our 2-hour in public spaces, trying to find a sliver of shade, trying to stay safe, and simply trying to make it through the next stretch of 110-degree heat. In 2025, the surge was undeniable. While the general population grows, the number of our neighbors living without any form of shelter has jumped by a staggering 28%. More than 5,100 individuals are now surviving in tents and makeshift structures scattered across parks, sidewalks, and desert alleyways. But here's the question that haunts this valley. How does a city building for the future leave so many people with nowhere to live in the present? In this 50-minute special presentation, we are pulling back the curtain on the Phoenix contrast. We will explore how an exorbitantly expensive housing market, where you often need to earn 3 times the rent just to qualify for a studio, is creating a new class of working unsheltered. We will look at the fragility of the welfare systems that are struggling to keep pace with reality, and the quiet crisis of youth and young adults drifting through the gaps of a broken safety net. We will take you inside the cooling centers that serve as vital oases, yet remain out of reach for many due to limited hours and vast distances. We will discuss the environmental toll of urban haze and dust on human health, and the subtle frictions that arise when public parks become unintended stages for the struggle of survival. But beyond the statistics of Maricopa County, we are here to tell the human story. We are going to listen to the voices of those marked by exhaustion, isolation, and a quiet resilience that the world rarely sees. We will witness the transition from temporary quick fixes to the long-term visions of hope that are finally starting to emerge. If you want to understand the true cost of the homelessness crisis in America today, stick with us until the very end. This is a journey through the shadows and the sunlight of a city at a crossroads. This is the reality of Phoenix 2026, and it starts right now. Part 2. The current state, adaptation, or exhaustion. In the expansive landscape of Phoenix, a city of 1.6 million residents, spread across 500 square miles of desert, homelessness has become an increasingly visible part of the daily commute. But for those living it, daily life is defined not by growth, but by constant, brutal adaptation. Many in this informal community wake before the first light of dawn. They aren't waking up for work. They are waking up to beat the sun. In a city that receives only 8 inches of rain a year, the search for water is a primary survival instinct. By 8 a.m., the pavement is already beginning to store the heat that will radiate back at them all through the night. The data from the 2025 count tells us a surprising truth. 81% of those experiencing this instability are adults over the age of 25. These aren't just drifters. These are people pushed into the margins by a sudden job loss, a medical bill they couldn't pay, or the simple, crushing reality of rising rents. Since 2019, chronic homelessness in the valley has more than doubled, as average rents for a simple 1-bedroom apartment climb toward $1,500, and as federal emergency funding began to evaporate in late 2025, a sudden void was created when 1,200 shelter beds closed in Maricopa County in a single year. It wasn't just a policy shift, It was a disaster for the individuals who were told. They had nowhere left to go. Informal communities form for safety. Belongings are moved from place to place in a constant, weary dance with city ordinances. This is a life marked by a unique kind of desert isolation. In a city built for cars, having no fixed address means you are effectively stranded in a sea of concrete. What part of this life is most often overlooked? Perhaps it is the sheer logistical struggle of survival. Imagine navigating an aid system without a phone, without a shower, and without a way to escape the heat while you wait for a caseworker to call your name. These realities reflect how fragile stability truly is. It reminds us that security is often just a thin veil, and for many in Phoenix, that veil has been torn away. Part 3. The widening chasm when systems fail to pace reality. As we move deeper into the heart of the valley, we must confront a difficult truth. Homelessness in Phoenix is not just a housing problem. It is a systemic failure. We are living in a time where the median household income hovers around $68,000. Yet the gap between that economic growth and effective support is widening every single day. Phoenix is a city of development booms, but for many families, that boom is a sound of a door closing. By early 2026, the average rent in Phoenix has surged to levels that were unimaginable just a few years ago. When a one-bedroom apartment reaches $1,845 per month, it consumes more than half the income of a low-wage earner. In the world of economics, we call this being rent-burdened, but in the world of the streets, we call it a countdown to instability. Without a safety net, an eviction isn't just a legal process. It's a direct ticket to the desert sidewalk. The welfare systems, led by state agencies, are struggling to breathe under the weight of rising demand. While assistance programs exist on paper, the reality for a person in crisis is a mountain of paperwork, long approval times, and a digital divide that makes seeking help almost impossible without a steady internet connection. We are seeing a logistical nightmare where the loss of federal emergency funding has left a void of over 1,200 shelter beds in Maricopa County. This isn't just a statistic, it's 1,200 human beings who were told, "There is no room for you tonight." Behind these failures are human lives marked by a specific type of exhaustion, the exhaustion of the waiting list. Imagine the frustration of navigating aid systems without a fixed address, where the lack of a mailbox becomes a barrier to receiving the very help that would provide you with one. This is the quiet heartbreak of watching your stability slip away. While the city's skyline continues to grow, these realities reveal that security is a thin thread, and for many in Phoenix, that thread has snapped under the pressure of a modern, unforgiving economy. Part 4. Youth Adrift, the hidden crisis of the next generation. Perhaps the most heartbreaking chapter of the Phoenix story is one that stays hidden in the shadows. The crisis of our youth. In a city where more than a quarter of the residents are under the age of 24, we are witnessing a quiet surge of young people being pulled into the cycle of housing instability. Unlike the visible encampments of older adults, homeless youth often stay adrift, couch surfing, sleeping in cars, or hiding in plain sight to avoid the attention of authorities. Studies in 2023 and 2025 have shown a terrifying rise in housing instability among Arizona's youth, some reports suggesting an increase of nearly 45%. In Maricopa County alone, over 1,100 children under the age of 17 have been identified as experiencing a lack of a permanent home. But experts agree that the true number is likely much higher, as these young survivors are masters of remaining unseen. What drives a young person into the desert heat? The causes are deeply intertwined with household environment instability. Family conflict remains the most common trigger, often linked to domestic crises or parental substance struggles. When a home becomes unsafe, a teenager is often forced to choose between the danger inside or the uncertainty outside. For many, the street isn't a choice, it's an escape. For these young people, substance use often starts not as a recreation, but as a coping mechanism for trauma and mental health struggles. It becomes a trap that increases their risk of exploitation and isolation. We also see the systemic cracks of the foster care system, where young adults age out at 18 with no support, no credit history, and nowhere to go. They are navigating early adulthood and sometimes early pregnancy in a state of constant hunger and exhaustion. Their days are defined by a search for temporary sanctuary. These journeys remind us that youth homelessness is not a distant or rare phenomenon. It grows quietly in the gaps between our family, housing, and care systems. It is a reminder that without targeted, early intervention, the crisis we see today will only replicate itself in the generations to come. Part 5. The Oasis Barrier: The Logistics of Survival. In the heart of the Sanran Desert, shade is not a luxury, it is a life-saving resource. As Phoenix temperatures frequently climb past 110 degrees, the city's heat relief network, a collection of about 150 cooling centers, emerges as a vital oasis. These spots offer air-conditioned refuge and essential hydration. But for those navigating the unseen emergency, the path to these oases is often blocked by invisible barriers. Imagine carrying everything you own: your blankets, your documents, your memories, through miles of shimmering heat waves. You arrive at a cooling center, exhausted and dehydrated, only to find that its doors closed at 5 p.m. The sun is still high, the pavement is still burning, and you are left to face the elements alone once more. This is the Oasis Barrier. Data shows that while these facilities serve thousands daily during peak months, many remain out of reach. In a sprawling metro area of 500 square miles, the average trek to a center can be 10 miles. For someone on foot, or someone burdened by mobility issues and the physical toll of the street, that distance might as well be 1,000 miles, when only 60% of people at risk even know where these sites are. The awareness gap becomes a life-threatening reality. This is a raw reminder of how small obstacles, limited operating hours, sparse bus routes, and a lack of storage for personal belongings can deepen the ache of uncertainty. It makes every hot day a test of endurance in a city that pulses with life all around. It prompts us to reflect. How can we call it a safety net if the people who need it most cannot reach it? Part 6. The Biological TOLL Health Under Hazy Skies. Living without a stable home in the Southwest is not just a housing status. It is a relentless strain on the human body. Under the vast, often hazy skies of Phoenix, where dust and urban pollutants regularly spike, the unsheltered population bears a disproportionate burden of environmental health challenges. When you cannot retreat behind a door, you are in a constant state of environmental exposure. Statistics show that nearly 30% of the unsheltered population in Maricopa County reports significant mental health concerns, a weight that is only amplified by the lack of consistent rest. In a city of 1.6 million, there are only about 1,000 to 100 licensed therapists. For those on the street, accessing that care is a luxury they cannot afford. The physical toll is equally profound. Local clinics treat thousands of heat-related and environment-related cases every year. Basic needs like managing hydration or keeping skin clean in the desert dust become ongoing battles. We also see a significant portion of this population is over the age of 55. For these elders, the strain of nutritional shortfalls and the grind of sourcing meals from food banks leads to a rapid erosion of wellness. This is a poignant illustration of human adaptability, yet it is one that evokes deep empathy. It is the story of quiet perseverance, coping with respiratory issues from dust storms, navigating mental fog without steady support, and aging prematurely under the relentless sun. Health is a shared thread in our lives, and in Phoenix, that thread is being stretched to its breaking point. Part 7. Shared Spaces, the Friction of the Commons. As Phoenix grows denser, the communal spaces designed for recreation, the 33,000 acres of public parks, have become unintended stages for the frictions of housing instability. Places like Encanto Park, which should be havens for families and joggers, are now shared by those with nowhere else to go. This overlap creates a subtle but constant strain. For a resident, a park bench is a place to sit for a moment. For an unsheltered neighbor, it is a bed. This clash of expectations leads to a shared environment that feels stretched and tense. In 2025, city maintenance teams handled over 1,500 tons of additional waste from these sites, a figure that illustrates the unseen burden on public resources. But we must look at the human cost of this friction. To be unsheltered in a public park is to live in a state of constant visibility and vulnerability. It means waking up to curious glances, hurried footsteps, or the fear of a cleanup drive that might take away your only shelter. For nearby businesses, it can mean a drop in foot traffic. For the person in the tent, it means the emotional toll of knowing that your very existence is seen as an inconvenience. This dynamic reinforces the isolation of the struggle. It is a raw portrayal of the search for belonging in a city that is moving faster than its people can keep up with. It urges us toward inclusive practices, asking not just how we clean a park, but how we house a neighbor. Part 8. Pathways to renewal, from quick fixes to lasting solutions. As we draw this journey to a close, we must look toward the horizon. The transition from temporary response to sustainable pathway is the greatest challenge Phoenix faces in 2026. Quick fixes like hygiene kits and pop-up resource fairs are essential anchors in the storm, but they are not the end of the story. The evolution is happening. We see it in transitional housing programs that boast a 70% success rate, in leading to permanent placements. These are bridges to rebuilding, allowing individuals the time to stabilize their health and regain their skills. We see it in the approval of 4,000 new low-income housing units, a direct counter to the skyrocketing rents that have pushed so many onto the streets. Employer partnerships are turning the search for work into a structured path that restores dignity. Community education in schools is working to break the generational cycle of instability. This is a narrative of quiet transformation. It is about seeing beyond the immediate emergency to nurture enduring stability. The phoenix from the ashes is not just a myth. It is a vision of a city where no one is left to weather the storms alone. It's about the young person finding their footing, the elder reclaiming their dignity, and the community building bridges instead of barriers. Conclusion. The message of the valley. We have walked through the shadows and the sunlight of Phoenix. We have seen the mirage of momentum and the reality of the struggle. What we are left with is a call to action. Life's paths can curve unexpectedly. A sudden shift, a lost job, a health crisis could place any of us closer to these realities than we imagine. This shared vulnerability is what binds us together. When we support local initiatives, when we advocate for faster aid systems, and when we choose empathy over judgment, we become part of the renewal. Thank you for staying with us on Homeless US. Your investment of time and heart means the world. If these stories have touched you, please like and subscribe so we can continue to walk together through the narratives that celebrate the resilience of the human spirit. What spark of hope from Phoenix stays with you today? Let us know in the comments. Let's keep shining a light, one compassionate step at a time. Until next time, this is Homeless US, where every story deserves a home.